Trail trekking along former industrial routes. Walk 20, the Chesterfield Canal, or the Cuckoo Way. Monday, the 30th of January 2012. And my friend Mitch and his German Shepherd dog Sasha have been invited to join No Names and I on a stroll along the first section of the Chesterfield Canal, also known as the Cuckoo Way, from the nickname of the narrowboat barges that once used it continuously during the Industrial Revolution. These were nicknamed cuckoos. Of course, this particular stroll, although not exactly on the doorstep, is merely 20 minutes drive away and would fit well with the trail trekking theme of regenerated former industrial routes. The Chesterfield Canal was opened in 1777 and was once a busy freight route for distribution of produce from the many industries close by. The original canal ran 46 miles from Chesterfield in Derbyshire all the way to East Stockwith in Nottinghamshire, where it eventually empties into the River Trent, which itself empties into the North Sea at the Humber estuary. Most, but not all, of the canal has now been redredged and made navigable once again after many years of abandonment. Like many other canals throughout the country, the original towpath is now used as a multi-use surface for pedestrians, cyclists, pushchairs, wheelchairs, mobility scooters and of course horses. I discovered the Chesterfield Canal many years ago whilst working voluntary for the Derbyshire County Council Countryside Ranger Service, who also introduced me to the Five Pits Trail and Rowthorne Trail nearer to my current home. The service was responsible for the policing and conservation of all the canal that was within the Derbyshire County boundary, so effectively from Chesterfield to the now Rother Valley Country Park at Killamarsh, where the canal enters into South Yorkshire. Yes, the Chesterfield Canal, or Cuckoo Way, passes through 3 counties of Derbyshire, South Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire. I've decided that parking the Trekkermobile at Tapton Park would be the best option. OK, this means a 5 or 10 minute walk alongside the main road to the start of the canal, next to where the Trebor factory used to stand. But parking there is free for as long as you like, and makes a more preferable option to parking in nearby residential streets and possibly upsetting someone, or within town with its excessive parking fees. What's more, parking in town would mean an even longer walk to our start point. The plan is to walk the first section of the canal from Chesterfield to the New Staveley Basin, some 5 miles distant. But as this is a linear route, it would also mean walking back to the Trekkermobile or catching a bus, and thus giving us a total walk of 10 miles. A 5-minute wander along the B6543 Brimington Road has taken us to the start of the canal, where it is initially fed by the River Rother. The dogs have been released to go about their own wanderings, and the cameras are out, as Mitch and I began taking our first snapshots of the day. Unfortunately for Mitch, his photographs are restricted to what he can do with his mobile phone, as he has no other camera. At a later date he bought a Vivitar VivaCam 9114, the same model as my camera, but a different colour, so as we don't get confused. The actual start of the Chesterfield Canal is marked by a red brick-built footbridge, with added graffiti, a single gate lock, and a mainly pale blue-coloured fancy directional sculpture. The plate mounted above the centre of the arch on the footbridge reads Chesterfield Canal, Tapton Mill Bridge No. 1. Our main disappointment is the mindless graffiti scrawled on the bridge and all the litter in the water. But this part of the canal is not frequented by visitors as often as the other areas along the Cuckoo Way, and tends to get less maintenance as a result. A green directional sign also informs us that this is part of the well-known Transpennine Trail, and also directs us to Chesterfield Station, Tapton Lock Visitor Centre and Staveley. We are wandering off along the path that was once the towpath of the canal in the days when it was first built, and the canal barges were pulled along by a horse on the towpath. The canal itself is currently to our right, with the continuation of the River Rother passing to our left but on a lower level. So we are at present bounded on both sides by some sort of waterway. The path itself, although solid, is at present muddy in places with many puddles, but the going is easy, as of course there are no inclines. At the far side of the canal, many reasonably new buildings have been built. One of them a block of apartments or flats that command a high price because of their proximity to the canal. Beneath a Premier Inn hotel on the far side is a boat mooring platform, but no boats are present. Whereas alongside our path are many fishing platforms spread out at intervals, but no fishermen. In fact, apart from ourselves and the occasional walker or cyclist, the only other occupants at the moment appear to be the mallard ducks. In no time at all, Tapton Tunnel comes into view, and our path goes through the short tunnel that now carries the A619 main road, Rother Way, between Chesterfield and Brimington, to exit at Tapton Lock and its visitor centre. Time to take some photos and see if the visitor centre is open. It's shut, so we won't be going in there today. Here at Tapton Lock, a slip of the paw has landed Sasha in deep water, literally. Mitch, of course, reacts immediately, and before I've realised what's happening, he's dragging his poor sodden German Shepherd dog out of the freezing cold water before her midwinter dip has chanced to cause her any serious ill health. Better move on. But before we do, we're viewing a rather unusual sign, which reads Cuckoo Way and Transpennine Trail, E8, Chesterfield 1 mile, to Istanbul 2,500 miles, and directional arrows accordingly. Strange. The towpath then passes under a minor road bridge, and we are soon leaving Tapton Lock behind us. North of Tapton Lock, the canal seems to widen, and after passing under a couple of railway bridges over the canal, we have come across a pair of mute swans, and several photographs ensue as they happily pose for us to take their pictures. The swans are quite tame, or so it seems, but to be fair, many visitors to the canal will happily feed treats to them, so the swans think that every visitor has something for them, and as a result this makes them quite welcoming of humankind to their patch of the waterway. Unfortunately for them, we have nothing for them but to take their photographs and immortalise them on the internet. After this photo session we continue on, and the swans follow us to Wealdon Mill Lock, some distance further along the canal. We have passed under the B6050 Brimington Road North and Station Road and seen our first boat, albeit not much bigger than a rowing boat, and moored alongside the waterway at the Mill Public House. Here there is also a large number of ducks, and I think they are hanging about this area to make the most of the treats given to them by customers at the pub. There is also a small free car park at the side of the Cuckoo Way at this location, and literally a few hundred yards more and we are at Wealdon Mill Lock. Time for another lock photograph session, but as I am taking photographs on the opposite side of the lock to Mitch and the dogs, No Names decides to run to meet me, not realising until it is too late that between himself and me is deep water. As he enthusiastically races towards me, I am stood shouting at him to stop and stay put, but he doesn't acknowledge my plea, and continues to happily rush to greet me. However, he is running too fast to stop before meeting the edge of the lock, and in the last split second suddenly notices water and takes a leap of faith, hoping to clear the width and land on safe ground, where his master is on the opposite side. He doesn't make it, and lands up in the water, splashing and scumming about trying to scale the lock wall to get out. My instinct has me dumping the camera and rushing to drag him out of the water. Closer inspection reveals only damage to his ego, but no serious physical injuries. Now, both dogs have been for a dip in the canal in the cold midwinter. I wouldn't fancy a dip in the canal at any time of year, but in winter, makes me shiver cold just thinking about it. From Wealdon Mill Lock onward, the surrounding area has become more rural, as the Chesterfield Canal now curves in a northeasterly and then easterly direction away from the town of its namesake. The surroundings have become more open to allow much more lighting and offer pleasant open views over the surrounding countryside of northeast Derbyshire. In time we have come to Bluebank Lock, but now I've opted for keeping the dogs under closer control whilst we take our photographs. Don't want a repeat of dog dipping. Although it's winter, throughout our walk along the Cuckoo Way we are continuously happening upon other visitors and stopping for the occasional chat. The route is very popular with many users of differing abilities and methods of transit. A few hundred yards from Bluebank Lock, a new brick-built footbridge, Bilby Lane Bridge, has been constructed over the water, and boat moorings refurbished or reinstalled, but still we see no boats. I'm sure we'd see more during the summer months. The canal curves to the right and fishing platforms, no anglers still, are located between the new brick bridge and the next lock, called Dixon's Lock. It appears that Dixon's Lock has been recently renovated, and another newly built footbridge crosses the canal at this point, although much smaller than the last one. Another photo session ensues, and for the first time today we see a typical canal narrowboat, although it seems to be primarily an advertising platform at present. The boat is named John Varley and owned by the Chesterfield Canal Trust, and I think that this is one of the boats that provides leisure trips on the canal in the summer months. We've continued on after our photo shoot, and in what appears to be only a matter of minutes have come to Hollingwood Lock with its quite recently built visitor centre, although it's closed at the moment. Dogs on the leads as we cross, or should I say pass under, the main works road that served the well-known Barrow Hill Works once upon a time. But the works are now mainly derelict land. However, regeneration of the area has begun, so we'll see what improvements are made over the coming years. This particular section of the Cuckoo Way appears to be extremely popular, as we meet many people around here, although we're in the middle of winter, and lots of other dogs, much to the delight of no-names, who always has a fondness for stopping to play with other dogs he meets on our walks. Sasha, on the other hand, tends to largely ignore them. The area around the canal has now opened up again to be largely rural, as we are passing many open fields. The towpath footpath here is very wet, and we found ourselves dodging lots of large puddles on the path. This hasn't dampened our spirits though, and we are pressing on to the old stone-built bridge at Mill Green as we enter into Staveley. The bridge is obviously very old and is looking very much worn down and crumbling, with obvious signs of the many repairs it has experienced over the years. Here we have found another multicoloured directional sculpture, much like the one we saw at the beginning of our walk. Immediately after Mill Green Bridge, the newly carried out work is prominent, as the waterway has begun to widen towards the new Staveley Basin. This particular regeneration of the canal has taken place most recently, with the new Staveley Basin officially opening only a week or so ago. Obviously modern work has been taking place here, as the relative authorities and voluntary groups have been progressing with their ultimate aim of making the whole of the canal navigable once again. However, it is very muddy, as the recent ground workings have yet to settle. It is quite unique on this stretch of the canal, and may in time become a marina, as the water expanse is much wider to accommodate many boats. Unfortunately, the continuation of the canal after this point is merely a footpath, as the original canal route is yet to be dredged and traces of the waterway are difficult to find. But I'm sure the excellent work will continue indefinitely to improve the experience of the Cuckoo Way for a few more miles. Indeed, the longest navigable section of the canal is in Nottinghamshire and South Yorkshire, and in time this Derbyshire section will eventually meet it. We have made the goal of today's walk, and it's now time to turn around and wander the 5 miles back to the Trekkmobile parked at Tapton Park. Our return journey throughout its length has proven to be even more enjoyable than the outward walk, As at Staveley earlier, the sun came out and has shone ever since. A tea break stop on the bench alongside the canal near to Dixon's Lock has left us both suitably refreshed for our continuing wander. Followed by a half pint sat on the raised decking area overlooking the canal outside the pub next to where we saw our first boat makes the journey all the more pleasurable. We are somewhat amused at the pub by a chalkboard sign that reads, "Enter garden at own risk. Crocs in canal." Summary. An interesting and easy walk that for once is not along an old railway, takes in wonderful scenery and provides a link with our industrial heritage. A truly easy access multi-user route, most enjoyable.